Hi, welcome to Help Nobody Told Me. I'm Shannon Johnson with Berkshire Hathaway, and today my co-host is Jordan Kagan, the Man of Silver.
Thank you.
And we have with us our guest, Debbie Steinberg. And Debbie actually has type 2 diabetes.
I do.
And she is a diabetes prevention specialist. So tell us a little bit about your diagnosis and how you became a prevention specialist, what that looks like, and what your goal is in that.
So first of all, I'm really excited to be here, so thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
So my story starts back basically 2014, around then, and I had been experiencing, some of the symptoms that kind of tell you have diabetes, and I knew that my blood sugar was creeping up. So unfortunately, it did turn out that I had crossed that bridge from prediabetes to diabetes, and I started a health journey. The first couple years were super rough because, like a lot of people who are newly diagnosed or pre-diabetic, there's not a lot of support there. You're kind of on your own. You kind of have to figure it out, and either you do or you don't, right? So. Anyway, a few years later, I found myself in the worst situation I've been in. I was heavy, the heaviest I've been. I was super tired and sluggish and sick, and it was terrible. And I was like, I got to do something. So I started on a real health journey, starting with losing some weight. That was super important and awesome and did help a lot. And then the next step was to discover the things like the National Diabetes Prevention Program and some other programs through insurance, actually, that were going to help me manage, and
which we pay for, so we should take advantage of those things.
That's exactly right. Yes, if it's 1,000,000%, if it's covered by insurance, if it's part of it, if they're bringing it to your attention, it's a wonderful thing to take advantage of. And at that point, you have nothing to lose.
Right.
So, yeah, and all of this came together where I was like, this journey has to mean more than me, and so I wanted to pay it forward. So I got certified with the CDC to be a group leader for the National Diabetes Prevention Program called Prevent T2. So I've been helping people ever since.
That's awesome. I didn't even know there was a program called Prevent T2.
We mostly don't. I guess it's just not as sexy as some of the other programs.
Right. It's funny how that works out, huh?
Right.
So you talked about you knew you had some of the symptoms. What are the symptoms of type 2 diabetes?
So a lot of bathroom breaks. That just seems a lot more than normal. Having times of being so super thirsty, right? The other end, like so super thirsty, sluggish and tired, having the extra weight start adding on, all those things are good indicators that maybe I need to pay more attention to those 1 or 2 tests that the doctor does that they look at, but like we don't pay attention to, right? So like what's called the A1C. That is a 3-month little snapshot of how you're doing blood sugar wise, and we use that generally to help us. Yeah.
And that's a blood test?
It is a blood test, yes. And the panel of blood tests, you go and you do a blood test, right, and they take 3 vials, whatever. Among all the tests that they do is what's called the A1C, and that's the big one of what we have right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what percentage of people from the A1C in this country would be classified as pre-diabetic?
Okay.
And what percentage of them even know? Do most people know they're pre-diabetic? Is it common?
Yeah, right. So you could have some of these mildish symptoms and sort of laugh it off, sort of not think about it, unless the doctor brings it to your attention. Yeah, you may not know. There is a big percentage, unfortunately, right now of people walking around and they're pre-diabetic or they're actually diabetic and they don't even know it because it just hasn't gotten serious enough. When you do the A1C test, you're looking for a number under 6.5. 6.5 is diabetic. That's a diabetic number.
Under 6.5.
Under 6.5 is not diabetic.
Okay.
Under 5.96, that's safe.
Okay.
That
So that-
5.9 or 6
is that
to
pre-diabetic?
exactly.
Okay.
That's your pre-diabetic. That's like your yellow zone, right? And that is the best time to act because we know we have a situation on which to act, and we haven't crossed that bridge over into diabetes, which makes it so much harder to help the body reset
Right.
and whatever.
And I looked up a couple statistics when we were talking about this last night. According to the CDC, the prevalence of diagnosed diabetes increases significantly with age, with the highest rates found in people aged 65 and older.
Yes.
So as we age,
Yes, we're more
it's
we're
more
more at
common
risk
to see
because
that
because the three things that kind of push us are our genes, our diet, and our movement, right? So two of those things we can do something about, but those genes are much more likely to come out in that 65 plus time in our life, right?
Very interesting.
And so one of the goals of the program that I'm part of with the CDC, they say our goal is to prevent / delay. So if you're younger and we can just prevent it, we can reset your hormones and reset your metabolism, heal that, that's fabulous, that's wonderful. But for those of us with super strong genes that are just going to give us some issues later anyway, no matter what we do kind of, maybe we can give ourselves an extra 10, 15 years. Wouldn't that be awesome? You know,
are there specific genetic factors?
you mean
that
like
play into
markers that
this?
we know about?
Right.
So I'm not super familiar with that quite
Okay.
yet, but that's a really good question. What I know is, you know, and they'll ask you if you think about it, in all the medical history
Right.
things that you do, whenever you see a new doctor, whenever you see somebody new or somebody's specialist, they ask you all these, you know, in your family, has anyone had cancer? Has anyone had heart disease? Has anyone had blah, 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 blah. And so I know, for example, for me, part of the thing definitely is the genes. I definitely have it, you know, I remember to this day my great-grandmother and some of her paraphernalia that she needed whenever she came to visit because she was diabetic.
Right. So it follows us, and we it's so important that we pay attention to
Yes.
our family history when
Right.
it comes to medicine, and,
Yes.
and that we know
Right.
the things to look out for
Yeah.
as we age.
Yeah, so I would say just as much as people pay attention to the BRCA gene and to their breast health screenings, it's just as important to, you know, nudge the doctor, like, how was that A1C? Like, are we concerned? You know, should it be better? You know,
Especially if you have any of those other risk
Yes,
factors,
right.
including the family history.
right, including family history, including mobility issues, which may lead to a low level of activity, right? Especially as we get, you know, into different chapters of our lives and we head towards that 65 plus chapter. So things change, and we may have been super active earlier, and then things happen or things change or whatever, and now we find ourselves not super active. It's gonna affect stuff, right? It's got to, right?
Right.
So it's definitely something to pay attention to.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about, you talked about genetics and parents or grandparents, and I definitely think a lot of what we eat or the lessons of how to eat, we've inherited, we've observed. So how can diet and nutrition impact the risk of developing type 2? And do you even see not only differences here, but how our diet or what we eat compares to other parts of the world maybe?
Yeah, excellent question. So, like I said, so the three factors, you know, so, right, the genetics, the movement, and the nutrition. So it is like a metabolic, digestive situation because it's all about when you take in food, can your body use it properly? So in this case with diabetes, it's about the hormone called insulin and whether your system is using that properly. Is it producing the right amount? Is it using the right amount? So our intake is going to affect that quite a lot. It will affect it a lot. So if you're giving your body what it needs, a lower sugar, lower glycemic, pretty much the same thing,
Right.
diet, it's going to do a lot better. It's going to have,
What is that? What is a lower glycemic, lower sugar? What does that look like?
so that looks like less processed food, Not a big surprise, right? It's a hard one, and I
Less
say that way
processed,
because because we all it's so ingrained in our lifestyle now to have all the processed
because it's
stuff.
easy.
And it's easy. It's easy. It's actually the way our pricing is. It's actually less expensive. It's kind of kooky, but yeah. So
less processed. What else?
More natural. The closer to nature you can
Natural,
get,
fresh,
the better. Yeah. And then there's like certain fruit that's higher glycemic. It's harder on that insulin and your metabolism system. It's harder to pull out the stuff from that. So yeah.
So you have to watch. You can't always just say, fruit and vegetables, but you have to be careful.
Right. There's even better choices when it comes to the fruits and vegetables.
I know that apple is a good one.
Apple is a good one.
That's a good fruit that's not really high in sugar.
Right. Banana would be a very high one. Grapes would be,
That's a sweet one. That's a high one.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, all right. So I'm sure there are graphs that you can look at that really give you
1,000%.
specifics about all of that.
Yes.
But
again, you'd be on your own to find that, right?
Right.
So that's hard. So people like me are super important in the sense of helping people just kind of figure that out. A lot of times the problem is just a lack of information. So let's get you the information and you're good to go. For other people, it's more emotional support because their issue is actually their relationship with the food, not necessarily like I'm eating good things, but then something happens and I eat a whole pint of ice cream. So we got to figure that out, right? Because that's not going to be good on the system, and then our numbers are going to creep up. So, yeah.
And it's difficult. I've been on my own journey with weight loss and food and exercise and all these things, and it's what I think people sometimes don't understand when you're talking about weight loss is not everyone thinks about food the same way.
Correct.
And, when you're talking to someone who has that food noise in the back of their head all the time, for us, it's very different than others who don't have that.
Like you can't even attempt some of the other stuff until you lower that noise.
Right.
You're just not going to be successful.
You have to find tools that work for you, and everybody's different, to maintain that.
Yes.
And you have to know your triggers, whether it's emotional eating.
Right.
For me.
Or scheduling or whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of things that go into that.
For me, the sugars and the carbs and all those things, they were like cocaine to me.
Yeah. They actually, I don't know if you've seen this. This is so cool. So they actually have done brain scans that show what lights up when you're having sugar and what lights up when you're having cocaine. And they were very, very, scarily similar.
Yeah. Because once I start, I just... It wasn't one donut.
No, it's automatic. Yeah.
It's so good, I want more. And things like that. So you bread or pasta or all those things.
Yeah, they're so addictive.
I just really had to analyze, okay, is it even worth it for me
to have them
to have those things in my diet? Maybe that's my cheat day or something, but I have to be very methodical about when I allow that in my diet.
Yeah.
Because it's not healthy for me.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's different. So again, so first you kind of have to do some analyzing and data management of data collection rather, of what's going on here exactly, and then you can go. So first of all, I was going to say you were talking about that food noise. So those new drugs that everyone's so excited about, the GLP-1s, which were originally developed for us diabetics. Because it helps with that whole system. But they also have found that for people who don't have diabetes, that can help a lot with that food noise. That's one of the reasons people are being so successful with them. It's very cool.
Yeah, and Oprah did a very good whole series talk about all of that. And
as she explained that. She's really great. I feel like I'm paying forward with the information. When she learns something, she's going to let us all know.
She did a great job on that special that she did about that.
I was also just saying about data collection and stuff. One of the best things created in the 20th century, early 21st century has been what we call CGMs. The continuous glucose monitors. They're the Libra Freestyles and the Dexcoms and those things. I'm wearing mine. And it's just a little thing that goes on you, and it takes information from the fluid right under your skin and they figured out how to calibrate it so that they can tell what your blood sugar is at any time. So instead, where we used to have to keep pricking our fingers all the time, and that led to a lot of people not doing as well because they just couldn't keep up with that. And so this is a lifesaver. It's phenomenal. It connects to my phone, and at any point in the day, I could be like, oh, what's my number right now? Oh, and I see the chart of where my number has been all day.
Now, if it's particularly high, does it alert you? Or?
It does.
Okay.
That's another feature.
Low.
Or dangerously low.
Okay.
Right. So high,
both are important,
right.
Of course.
So that's the thing about the blood sugar. You want not mountains, high, low. You want little rolling hills. Right?
Okay.
Because all day your body's doing stuff and working,
Sure.
and you're eating, right? Hopefully we're fueling our body, all day. So at different points in the day. So what we want to happen is these little rolling hills, not mountains and valleys. So like when I started, there were mountains and valleys, right? For sure. And when I have it more under control through what I'm eating, how I'm moving, also some medicine, sometimes like those genes, right? And you just need some medicine support. That's okay too, and you just have to, by having that on, it's amazing because it gives you so much knowledge and so much power. Because you could see, so I had this for lunch and I did okay. But yesterday, look at that mountain and valley that happened after lunch. It was the fill in the blank that I ate.
Sure.
And I know now that my body, with that particular food, this is how it reacts.
Yeah.
So
I noticed when you're talking about this, it's a little patch on your arm. And I remember years ago friends who had like a whole system that was attached to their waistband. And
right. So that's probably more an insulin pump.
Okay.
And also, technology over time gets better and better.
Right.
But the whole production and the waistband stuff usually is a pump.
Okay,
That's
so
an
two
insulin
different
pump.
things.
Yes. So when you have really intense insulin resistance and or diabetes, and a lot of times with type 1 diabetics, you'll find that more.
Okay.
So they really need a pump helping them do insulin all day because their pancreas has just stopped producing,
Gotcha.
And so that's what we have now to support people whose pancreases have like shut down, basically.
All right. Thank you.
So let's talk about, in past, there's been Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and the Atkins diet and this and that. You hear so many people, I took off weight, I put it back on. I took off weight, I put it back on. So talk to me about the philosophy of maybe not just diet, but a little bit more about this program you said called, Prevent T2. And how does that differ from everything else we've done? Maybe going to an endocrinologist or your doctor or not. So how do they differ?
Oh, excellent question. So we have in our country some wonderful programs as far as weight loss and weight loss management is concerned. The thing is, the statistics unfortunately aren't great. Something like 95% of people who lose weight with all these things put it back on. And so, the obvious question is, why? So the thing is, it's about lifestyle change. And when I say that, I really kind of mean being a different person you were before that. So, things really have to fundamentally change in order to keep that momentum and to keep that weight from coming back. Because what happens is, if you do it temporarily, like one of those programs, it's about the short time that you're doing the program and, oh, look at this, and then I got to my goal, so we're good, right? Problem solved, right? No, I did something that helped me take off the weight, which is a really good health decision. Awesome. But now what are you going to do with that? Did that change you in any way? Now that you're not, quote, in the weight loss phase, in the weight loss mode, do you still carry your water bottle around? Do you still shop the same way, or do you go back to shopping the way you did before? Because it probably looks very different what you're doing when you're in weight loss phase versus, right? So the couple of programs that are lifestyle changes, like the National Diabetes Prevention Program, it's all about is lifestyle change, right? What are we tweaking and changing in our life for real, for always, to take more control of our health. So yeah, you're gonna cook different, you're gonna shop different, you're gonna move, absolutely. You're gonna do things a little differently, and we're gonna tweak and change the focus, right? Like with the camera, so that you could have your best health.
So speaking of moving, what role does physical activity play in type 2 diabetes? And are there some types of exercise that are more beneficial than others?
Right. Good question. So anything is better than nothing. That's what we have discovered also. So there used to be this real idea that everybody held that was, if it's not intense and I'm super sweating, if it's not longer than 20 minutes, right, that kind of thing, then it's not worth it and it's not going to change my body. So that doesn't turn out to be quite true. If you're doing the form properly, and if you're adding minutes, you're in great shape. And that's what's going to change your body. So going from 0 minutes to 5 minutes is a change. And it will help change your body. Will it do as much as the 20, 30, 40 minutes? Well, maybe not. But the fact that you're building up wins, the fact that you are doing something, it all can build on it. Wins builds.
You can't start with 10,000 steps if you're not there. But you can start with a block.
Right.
Or whatever that looks like for
your
you.
block. Like goal 1, I'm going to walk up and back my block.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the more you do that, the more you'll be ready. And you might find yourself
before you know it, you're going to be going around the block.
Right. And you just slowly add, And for a lot of people, if there's a lot of weight involved that they need to get off first, that's the biggest thing causing the issue. So for them, it could also be kind of dangerous if they have so much weight on their knees, on whatever, especially in an older age group. You have to be really careful that you're being safe first and foremost, right? So don't feel bad about 5 minutes. Don't feel bad about if you need a little support with movement right now. Okay,
so
but
like
do
a cane or a walker?
Canes and walkers, they're
for the short term?
Absolutely.
So have you had
every pound that you take off is 4 pounds of pressure off your knees.
I believe that. As someone who has had major surgery on both my knees, because I blew them out on an obstacle course 2.5 years ago, I completely believe that. Yeah. And the other thing that I've noticed, I'll be really transparent here, as I'm trying to get back into the gym and starting to do things to get really active again, is I can feel the impact on my knees because of what I've been through. And the best thing that I've found is the Aquafit class at my gym. Now,
yes,
almost everyone in there has silver hair. I have a few, but I am probably 15 to 20 years younger than everyone else in the class.
But it's the best.
But there's no impact on my knees. And I feel like I can do everything and I'm not protecting my knees the entire time. Right. So find what works for you and start small.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah. And, the endorphins and just what movement does for us is so valuable also. It'll help motivate and inspire us to do more things that we need to do in this process. So.
Correct.
So you're talking about endorphins and how our brain operates, chemicals release. So how does stress and mental health impact the risk of developing type 2 diabetes? And what coping strategies or tools are recommended?
So, yes. So, because it's metabolic and digestive, so we're also then dealing with hormones. So, so you have insulin, you have cortisol. Remember, cortisol is like the stress hormone, they call it. It's the stuff that gets released when you get stressed, when there's a big impact event, when and with deadlines and decisions to make and whatever, that can build up. And, if one of the hormones is messed up, the whole thing kind of gets clogged or messed up or slows down. So that's also why with women, when you see they have such a change in like their 40s, 50s, whatever, with menopause and all of what's involved in that. So that's also, right, hormonal. So when that happens, that's why also you might see insulin resistance, added weight, those things happening around that time too. So when one gets messed up, so you were talking about mental health. So if you are not emotionally regulated, if you're going through something extended and intense, so that is going to affect your whole system. So I think we all from the pandemic probably have higher levels of cortisol than we did before, and have some impact from that, and that we should look at as far as our mental health goes and our emotional regulation. So working with mental health professionals to learn all sorts of cool emotional regulation strategies, that's an amazing help, and will definitely bring you closer to where you want to be.
I have a dangerous question to ask here. It's not on the list. I'm in the room with two women. So talk to me and what you might share with the woman or a wife or a girlfriend who goes on a health journey at the same time as the man in her life, and the weight falls off for him, and she is frustrated. Is it common that the man loses weight more faster than the woman?
Absolutely. It's just a fact. It's unfair and frustrating, but it is true. Men who go ahead and try all these things to do weight management, they're just much more quickly successful. But they also have those things afterwards. So meaning their success long term depends on the same things that ours does. Okay, so actually changing who they are, actually continuing all the good habits that you're picking up while you're in weight loss mode, that part is the same. The weight loss part isn't probably going to be the same.
So she may catch up with him.
Yeah. And so, depending on your personalities and how your lives are structured, you might keep it off and he may not.
There you go.
So, it just depends on what you guys decide on that, what we're going to do after. How is this going to change us, like I said?
So are there any medications or supplements that can help reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, or?
So there are some things that have been found to help with blood sugar a little bit. So if it's like very, very mild and like you never had a blood sugar issue, but now that you're 67, all of a sudden you and your doctor are having these conversations. Some things, apple cider vinegar has been shown to help. Cinnamon has been shown to help. So those are like natural, simple things.
Right.
But having all the things, like having your regular checklist, if these things are in check, you're really going to be doing really well. So, but those are some easy things you could try adding. And depending on, individually, like, you need to check with your people, your team, your support team, your health team.
Of course.
As far as like how much of that kind of stuff. But there's pretty strong evidence that I think for sure for those two things, and I saw that for me. So
once you get past where maybe you're I think you said 5.9, 6.0, once you hit that 6 or 6.1, is the doctor more likely going to want to prescribe something? And if yes, what might they be talking about with you?
I feel this is so anecdotal. This is not real, or science based. But I feel like everybody's on metformin. Metformin has been shown to help people in that 6.1 to 6.5 range a lot. So doctors want to jump to that a lot. And this is one of those holes that people fall into. The doctor's just like, okay, well, so we'll start. If it doesn't come down in our next blood work, we're going to do metformin. So go try and do the diet and exercise thing.
All by yourself.
All by yourself.
No support.
Whatever. Go try that because we have a thing brewing here. But, you know. They always want to, you know, Western medicine is wonderful at diagnoses and at dealing with what we call acute symptoms. Something is happening right now. Where is it coming from, and what can I do to stop it? Right? Western medicine has gotten really good with that.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, I don't see us succeeding in Western medicine right now is wellness and whole person stuff and everything in harmony. It's like, I'm an endocrinologist, so I will deal with this, and I'm a dermatologist, so I will deal with this. Like, and it's very compartmentalized, and it's not sinking,
whole person.
And it's not whole person, because like I'm saying, it's about all the hormones, right?
Right.
So you can play around with your insulin, but if you're 52 and you're and your hormones are still moving around a lot, and we haven't quite figured out what the estrogen and the
and then your thyroid's out of whack,
right? And yes. So yeah, so like if you go down that list and you're like, okay, let's pay attention to my weight. Let's pay attention to these other hormones where, you know, and get those in line. Then we can be like, okay, so now, you know, then we can do the diet and we can do more movement, and all of that together is going to put you in a good place.
I think this is my last question for you, so thank you. That was great. One thing we're trying to do with this podcast is get the facts out there and to educate people. So, what are some of the common misconceptions about preventing type 2 diabetes that adults should be aware of?
That it's totally a person's fault. Like, if you ate right, you know, that's all you gotta do, right? Like, what's the problem? Or if you just took a pill, right? Can't you just solve that with a pill?
If you just lost weight,
if you just weren't overweight, then you wouldn't have diabetes. Like, that's why you're overweight. I mean, that's why you have a problem, right? So the fact that it's that, and all these outside factors can push on a person to where they end up there. Like, you have to take into account all these pieces, and I think we need to be kinder to ourselves and to each other, to be like, wait a second, so it's not just one factor. Like, this is a person, so it's got to be more complicated than that, right? And to understand, you know, that it's DNA and hormones, it is diet, it is movement, but it's not just one of those things, you know. And if you start to see a number creeping up, or it's been, or, you know, or it's like 6 months, a year, whatever, and you just don't know what to do about it. So there are those of us who are out there to help. There's a lot of people who really do have some of these facts, who really do have talked to and worked with enough people to be able to help you, at least a little bit. You know, obviously nothing is guaranteed and nothing is perfect, but there's a lot of these things that those of us who have worked with the system, you know, we know and we can help with.
And tell us the name of the program again with diabetes.
Okay, so this is the National Diabetes Prevention Program called Prevent T2, type 2, which stands for type 2.
Type 2. So those things are out there. We just have to get the information out there so people know how to get to those programs.
Yes.
Find specialists like yourself.
Right.
Who
I would start in two places. Number one, I would start with the doctors that I have and say, you know, from your office or your medical system, you know, I'm here in, you know, Northern Illinois, so North Shore is like our deal. Generally, there's a couple others, but like that's the biggie. So, you know, find out through your system what programs are there, because there's a lot that is available. It's just not, there's bad PR. You know, there's just not enough PR on it.
Right.
And not every doctor wants to do this, because you might not have to see an endocrinologist if you're really just encroaching. You might not need their diabetes educator, which is you're going to be lucky to see 4 times a year. But if you join a program like yours, you might be more likely to have more hand-holding to find better success without having to pick up the phone and call your doctor.
Right. The other important thing to know is that in every year, health insurance programs are getting on board more and more with preventative programs. So, you know, they have deals with gyms, near you. They have a whole bunch of things. And, Medicare is a huge agency,
Right.
So they also are out there making deals and getting stuff for their people.
I believe Lifetime Fitness has a deal with Medicare.
And I think there was
And
something called
there are
Silver
others, but I know-
Sneakers.
yes.
I think
So there are
I don't
programs
know all
out
of it,
there.
but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is available to all of us, regardless of age, but especially for 65 plus, there's stuff out there. And yeah.
Right.
So get in touch with them. I know
And
there's a new thing.
I know you're a librarian. Your local library, your local senior center,
Yes.
oftentimes has programs that
That's true.
Even fitness,
That
a lot of the senior
rec
centers have.
They usually have a senior rate, at the very
Great
least.
point.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Debbie, thank you so much for joining
You're
us
so
today.
welcome.
This is great information.
Thank you.
As we all try to live a healthier lifestyle, just something to know that when you get that type of a diagnosis, that there are programs out there. And we'll have all of your contact information and information about these programs in our show notes. So make sure that you take a look at that. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
And we hope that you will join us again next Wednesday when we release another episode of Help, Nobody Told Me.